Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of Advanced Programming with Java here at Portland State University. Um, got an interesting class for us tonight. It'll be a little different from the last couple of weeks. In the first 2 weeks, you see me doing a lot of coding. We worked through the student project where we wrote integration tests, we wrote unit tests, we learned about Java doing that way. Tonight we're going to be you're going to be coding with each other. We're going to begin our exploration of pair programming, and then later in the course mob programming. We're going to begin that tonight. But first, we're going to start off with some prime minister's questions, and want to be sure to talk about project 3 along the way, and we'll also watch a video. But to start us off, what questions do you have? What comments or feedback do you have about the project? Project 1 was due tonight. We've there was a lot of good discussion about it on Slack. So hope that we were able to get most of the questions answered. But what are some things that you'd like to either talk about, whether it's questions you have or observations or feedback that you'd like to share?
Do you mean for assignment one?
Really, anything. This is your time. So it can be about project 1, it can be project 2, about the quiz, the cones. Those are still coming
Hmm.
up. Everything.
Okay. Um, Let me think. I Whenever this opportunity comes up to ask a question, I usually will be able to come up with one, but right now I don't have one.
You can
I
do it.
guess.
I have faith.
Um, so the
I have a
Coens are okay. Go ahead.
question. As far as the quizzes go, what is the best study material?
Good
It's
one.
really what you worked with on the projects the prior week. That's how I try to engage. It's like, hey, you've worked on the project, and the quiz is roughly on the material that was covered in the project or in the lectures that support the project stuff. So I believe this week's is all about object-oriented programming.
Yeah, and as far as I think I already asked this, but I just wanted to double check. I'll be honest, I kind of struggled with this one. Wasn't too familiar with some of the concepts. And it's closed book, closed internet. I forget exactly what the rules were for that again.
For the quizzes,
Yeah.
yes. So yes, closed book, closed internet.
Okay, that's
So it'd be
what.
the same thing as if you were in a classroom that you were filling out the quiz and all materials are away.
And so just studying then, because I just want to going into the next one, I want to be more confident. Is there, should I just like Google the title of the quiz and research those concepts then?
Well, I mean, it's really about the lecture notes, right? And so make sure you've watched the lecture, and then and if it's been a little while, just thumb through the PDF,
Okay.
and remind yourself of some of the concepts, and maybe study up on some of the. If you see an API, if you see some code where you're like, hey, what does it do exactly? Yeah, so probably 10 minutes of prep time, sort of thumbing through the lecture material, um, ought
Yeah.
to be enough after working on the assignment all week.
I guess one question I have is I wrote a lot of Java documentation, but unfortunately I wasn't able to double check it myself because I wasn't sure how to actually view the
Yeah,
output. If you could possibly, I know
I
I was
can.
looking it up and I know like IntelliJ might have some way to do it, but I just didn't have enough time
Does.
to check.
But here's what the grader does. Oops. Let's see here. So yeah. So if you run, I don't know if the student project does, but I'll look at my appointment book. If you and I think there was a question about this on the I came across today on Slack also, so you can go look it up. If you run Maven dash p grader java doc, what this does is it runs the java goal, the java plugin. Um, this is exactly what the grader does. So when you run that command line, what it'll do is it'll build the project and then it'll generate java. Question came in on chat. Do we have a pair mob programming today? Yes, we do. So please stick around for that. And then, I don't have very much in the way of java, so I wouldn't do very well on this. But what this does is it basically spits out as text, here are your API docs. So again, that command is, I'll put it into chat here. You run the java doc. Oops. Everyone in meeting.
And does that produce an HTML file?
Nope, it just spits out a standard out. That makes it
Okay.
really easy for the grader to grade it because it's there in the same output as all your program stuff, all your program
Okay.
output.
I just ran it, and maybe it's because of the first time I've run it before, but it has so much like lines of like generating this, that, and the other thing that it's kind of hard to find where it actually output. But I did see something like that. I guess I'll
So
just.
I mean, if you're wondering, and yeah, Matthew answered it here. So if you want to look at the HTML that was generated, then you can run. See here, I think Maven package will generate it, and this will generate the HTML documentation. This is a default Java doc.
Mhm.
It's not the special Java doc that you get when you don't run with -p grader. What the -p does is enable something called a Maven profile, which allows you to have special configuration. So like when like the same thing with the clean and verify, when you run with a grader profile enabled, then it'll fail if you don't have the code coverage.
Mhm.
And so now we can open, and open is a machism that will just attempt to open some file here from the command line. So target API docs index.html, and there you go. So here's the project one, and so you can see your Java doc that way.
Okay. Interesting. I have target site API docs, but there's nothing in it. Oh well.
Is nothing in it?
Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I have things that actually say like error, invalid use of @param. So whoopsie daisy.
I think that's a warning. You're right. It's reported as an error, but it's actually a warning. It doesn't cause things to fail.
Okay.
So I'm a little surprised that it doesn't. So you don't have an index.html.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it has various things that say error, invalid use of @param. And then it has warnings. There's are two different things. It actually has error, invalid use of param, and then
Oh,
warning, no
so
comment.
that's probably something that would make it fail then. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. Hmm. Well, I'm getting used to it.
Matthew, thanks for waiting patiently. Well, what's the question that you had? You had your hand raised, or a comment that you had.
Yeah, so in one of the other classes you brought up that it's on the document as well, 7 points for this assignment.
Yeah.
6 of them are for our code. Is there any I was looking for a rubric or something like more like what even our code is. Like is it like overall quality,
Yep.
functional, not functional, like or is it just like if it passes the grading script, etc.
Yeah, so it's the test cases that I run it through. And so then what I have is a series of grading scripts that will exercise your command line program, and it'll send it various inputs, and then you'll be assessed on the outputs that it that provides. And there are also things that as part of that grading script will run the command that'll look at your Java docs. It'll run the code coverage to make sure there's appropriate code coverage, and then the graders will assess the overall quality and assign some portion of those 6 points. And then the seventh point is the POA.
Okay, cool. So not necessarily how efficient like we go through the command arguments or like
Nope.
okay, cool.
No, the reality is that I mean, there's no way I'm going to have the graders look at all of your code. Um, and so then, I have no way to assess the internal quality of the code, and so I look at the external quality. Um, I mean, I suppose I could run some sort of like cyclomatic complexity analyzer, but no, that doesn't. That's not really what the course is about.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep, good question.
This is a follow up in case you were curious. I actually was running that within Portland State Java Summer 2021 overall rather than appointment. So that might be the problem since I noticed all the things were
Maybe.
in Java.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways.
Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So a couple questions or maybe a couple of observations coming on chat. Sort of all about JavaDoc. Thanks for sharing your experiences, everybody. And good question. So one student asked, "Hey, I ran Maven site, and there's a whole bunch of things it complains about. Is that going to impact my grade?" Again, what I grade you on is that running with a -p grader, and that's just text. And so then no, it doesn't complain very much about things like character lines that are too long or missing Java doc for private things. No, it's much more forgiving because really I just want to make sure that there's some Java doc there. It doesn't need to be nicely formatted and super correct and stuff like that. But of course, as you get feedback on your programs, if you have any questions, reach out to the graders, excuse me, or reach out to me. Feel free to involve me in the conversation.
And yeah, it turns out that it actually works great. I loaded up Index and it looks very nice.
Great.
Yep. Awesome.
Cool.
Oh, one more question.
Yeah.
Is our text file supposed to have a an extension or not? Meaning, do we expect the user to provide the extension, or can we provide the extension internally?
Please don't provide the extension. The user says, "Hey, I want my file to be called appointments with no extension." That's fine. Um, I think everything that I test with, it'll have a .txt, but don't enforce one, please, and don't add one.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, good question. Okay. Awesome. Question. What exactly should the readme.txt contain? That was described here in the how to document your project, so I won't go over all of it now. But basically, it should be more than command line usage. It should explain what. Sorry, there we go. The readme down here. A brief, concise, and nicely formatted textual description of what your project does. So, quick little, 2-3 sentences of what your program does. I'll just quick paste that link. Okay.
One question I have is I wasn't quite sure whether the readme command needed to print out a readme.txt or if it would be acceptable just to print out lines that were hard coded in.
Hard coded is fine.
Okay.
It's just, awkward at times. And a lot of people have asked over the years, oh, hey, can I read it from a file? And then they would make assumptions like, well, of course, there's going to be a file named readme.txt there in the working directory. It's like, no. Don't make assumptions.
That was the main
So,
problem was I was like, I don't know if there will be a lot of incompatibility here where I tried to get, a malleable route so that it would work on anything else, but I can't test that. So yeah.
Yep. And and that's part of the assignment is developing code that that works no matter where it's being run. And so even though the Java bytecode itself is platform dependent, the context in which your program is run, context in which your application is run, can vary. And so then you just need to be careful about what assumptions you make about the environment.
Right.
And another question about the README. Can it be markdown? No, just plain text, please. I'm not going to render it and turn it into pretty HTML. It's all going to be on the command line. So just plain text. And the README.md, for GitHub repositories is a little different from this README. I like to think that I did it first, but anyway. Gosh, I think I've been teaching this course longer than Git has been around. I think Git, maybe about the same time. I can't remember when Git started. Anyway.
And not GitHub, right?
Definitely not GitHub. Yeah, right. Pioneer, yes, that's a word for it. Old man is another one. Okay. Any other questions for prime ministers? Any other questions before we dive into some other stuff?
Just checking in. Project 2 is essentially just adding on to this, but being able to take in appointments by file. Are we taking in multiple appointments?
Yes, the appointment the appointment book file. The
Okay,
file contains an appointment book, right? And so then as you run the program multiple times with the same file, the expectation is that the newly added appointments are appended to the file, are included in the file.
Got it.
Okay, cool. Nice. So one of the things that I'd like you all to experience in the course is programming with other people. Um, from what my students have told me over the years, other than sort of like the dreaded group project, you don't have much of an opportunity to see what it's like coding, with somebody else and having multiple sets of eyes on a problem. But this is something that outside of school, people do all the time. And in the in the last few years, 10, 15, 20 years, um, there have been a number of practices that have emerged to encourage people to work together when solving problems in software. And so the primary focus of tonight is to begin that exploration with some pair programming. And so I've got a handout here, and I will paste this also into the chat so you can play along with home, which explains what we're going to be doing tonight and next week. So, for many years when we thought of what software development was all about, it was this is the solitary person toiling away in their cavernous either cubicle at work or in their basement at home or whatever, writing software and the tortured genius and all that kind of stuff. Um, that's just a stereotype, and that didn't result in a lot of good software actually, and it didn't result in a healthy culture of being able to take in new ideas and evolve them quickly. um, it also, in an organization that contains many people, having one person toil away often results in them being a bottleneck. And a bottleneck, and the bottleneck's not good for anybody. It's not good for the people that are waiting for that person to perform some action, and it's really not good for that person themselves, right? It's not healthy. It's not fun. While it might feel like a rush to have everybody, depending on you, that weighs on you pretty quickly, and a lot of people got burned out because of it, and a lot of people were just unhappy about it. So uh, today, though, when we think about how software is engineered, we realize that it takes a team. It takes multiple people, multiple perspectives to come up with the best solution and bring all their skills and all their knowledge to solving the important problems that we're working on. And so there are two practices that we'll be exploring in this course that really put this team-based perspective of software development into practice, and that's pair programming and mob programming. So the whole idea in this style of programming, it's not just one person sitting at a computer; it's multiple persons sitting around a computer or working remotely to bring all they have to bring to the task at hand. And what this results in is having nice short feedback loops where people learn very quickly. People will try something, it'll work or it won't work, and they can quickly gather that feedback, take in that information, and then potentially change what they do next based on what they just learned. And the more people that observe this learning, the more people that participate in this learning, the more people, the quicker, faster it'll spread throughout a team, throughout an organization, throughout a pair, so that the lots of people learn. Lots of people learn the right way to do things. So when we talk about the code that we write in this class, there's a pretty important distinction I want to make clear. The code that you write for your programming projects, that is individual code. That is an individual contribution. That is sort of, yep, the old style of writing codes, and that's also what counts the majority of your grade. The grades are individual, and therefore the assessment must be individual. However, in class here, we'll do activities where you get to experience both pair programming and mob programming. And we'll do that by implementing what are called code katas. So a kata is a little exercise that comes from martial arts, where you learn a larger skill by focusing on a smaller skill. And so these code katas are basically simple programming projects that help you explore new language, new concepts, or test-driven development, those kinds of things. It's a pretty simple problem to solve overall, because what you're focusing on is learning a new solution, a new set of tools to apply to the problem at hand. So what I recommend that you do later tonight we'll be dividing up into pairs. And I recommend that you use a GitHub to collaborate, to share code between people. And this is an instance where you should use a public GitHub repository for it. So this is an opportunity to build your portfolio of code. You can put your Kata programs in public GitHub, no problem with that. So again, the pair and mobbing code is a public repository. Your project assignment code, though, that should still be in a private repository. Figure out amongst yourselves who actually will host the repository, make everybody else a collaborator that we can push to each other's repository. Andrew, was that a question?
Yes. Actually, there's another way. You can make an organization. This is something I learned last term.
That's
You
a
can
good
make
point.
an organization, and then everyone's equally in charge. So if someone like deletes their GitHub, you can still access your part of that project.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yep. And so then, yeah, feel free to create an organization. Also, I'm sure there are pros and cons there, but that's a good idea. So let's see here. So, public GitHub repository for your pair and mob code. I recommend that you go through that process that we did on the first night, where you make that bare clone of the getting started repository. That gives you a Java environment that you're all used to, and as a matter of fact, that environment has a create Kata project script, which will start you off with a new Maven project for your Kata's code. And we'll see examples of how to do this a little later on, right before we dive into things. But you run the create kata project.sh, and they give it a name of a kata, and then also the student or your group or your mob ID, whatever you want to do, and then that will populate a Maven project just like you're used to. Now, I want you all to experience this, and to then encourage it, to require you to experience it, I have to assess it. So this, participating in mob and pair programming exercises is a little part of your grade. So each student is required to participate in one pair programming exercise and one mob programming exercise. We'll have pairing this week and next week. We'll have mobbing the week after that, and then the week following that. And what we'll do is we'll spend some time pairing, and then we'll come back as a class, discuss our experiences, maybe go back and do another round, just make more progress on our solutions. And I would like everybody to participate in that. Additionally, there's a quiz on D2L, which is a reflection on your experiences pairing, and there's another one for mobbing. And so I have a couple of short questions that give you an opportunity to share what you learned, what you saw, what you observed, what you thought was effective, what you thought was ineffective about these. And that and those are assignments that those are quizzes that I'll read over and assign you a grade accordingly. Yes, Andrew.
Are either of those the quizzes that are not administered on D2L? Because I remember you mentioning that there are quizzes that are not on D2L.
No, all the quizzes are on D2L. There are two surveys, which are not these. These are quizzes. Yep, there are two surveys that are in D2L, which are in a slightly different section.
Okay, and we are graded on those surveys as well.
It's sort of like, did you do it? Yes. Yeah, you get 2 points or whatever it is. So it's sort of a not pass. What was the check mark? Right, you did it or you didn't. The easy quizzes.
Right.
So, are these quizzes in replacement of the weekly quizzes? No, they're in addition to the weekly quizzes, of course. Come on. Yeah. So no, there are still quizzes, and everything's on D2L, and everything is here. So let's see here. The reflection is let's see here. Yeah, that is due. Oh yes, in the infamous week 5. So just as a preview, as you are planning out the next couple of weeks, things are coming to a head, and they kind of all come crashing. The first half of the course, so there's not a midterm quiz or a midterm exam in this course, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that's due in the middle of the term. So project 3 is due on the 21st. The cones are due on the 21st. There's a quiz. There's a midterm survey. And there's also the reflections on your experience with pair programming. You can do the reflections at any time. So anytime after tonight, I think it opens up after tonight. So if you participate in the pairing tonight, then you might just want to go ahead and do the reflections, take that quiz while it's fresh in your mind, and just sort of get it out of the way.
And how long do you think that the first pair programming thing will take?
Um, for tonight, I think, let's see, your experience shows is that it's probably like 90 minutes of coding. We'll probably do it in 2 sections. Hey, we'll code for like, I don't know, half an hour or so, and then get back together, talk about our experiences, then go back for another half an hour or so, maybe wrap up.
Oh, so we're doing that during this lecture time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So instead of watching me code, I get to watch you code. So actually, I'm not watch you code. I'll probably come into the breakout rooms or whatever. But we'll get to code together and then talk about our experiences. So yeah, this is an in-class activity. Can I take the reflection quiz more than once? I hadn't really thought of that. If you find that you do participate in both pairing sessions and you have a drastically different experience, the second one, if you're not able to resubmit it, then reach out to me and let me know. I'd be really curious if you find that upon going back to pair programming a week later that you have a very different experience. That'd be cool to learn about. Just so that you know some of the questions that you'll be asked about on the quiz, there will, you'll have to know the names of the people that you worked with. So you can't just be like, oh yeah, that guy, or oh yeah, the other person there. So you'll please get their names and everything of the people that you worked with. Make sure you have a link to the public GitHub repository so that we can check it out. But we might look at it just to see what was done. We're not gonna like try to run it or anything, so don't worry if your code is broken. The intention for the katas is that you explore pair programming, that you explore trying to solve these problems. The goal is not to solve the kata completely in 90 minutes. If you do, that's great, and you can tell us all about it. But it's not meant to be something that is that it's not like a project where you're going to be graded on the quality of your code or if the code does what it's supposed to. And then also, the main part of the quiz is like, what are your experiences? And so I was like, hey, what did you see? What did you observe? What did you learn about the whole thing? And then, some thoughts on when pairing and mobbing, these are 2 separate quizzes, one on pairing, one on mobbing, would be effective and where would it be ineffective? And just to reemphasize, because last time someone thought that because we did pair programming in class, you do pair programming for your projects, and you can't. So, pair programming and mob programming is part of these in-class katas only. The project, the appointment book, must be completed individually, and otherwise it'll be plagiarism, and that's bad, right? Don't cheat, please. Question came in via a DM. Was the difference between pair programming and mob programming? Tonight we're going to watch a video about pair programming. In a couple of weeks we'll watch one about mob programming. But basically it's the number of people that are around the keyboard and sort of the intent. We'll learn about pairing tonight, and then we'll talk about mobbing in a couple of weeks. Okay. So that is how we do pair programming and mob programming in this course. We're going to start on it shortly. Any questions, though, before we learn about what pair programming is? Okay. So we've got another video to watch. Let me share my sound. Let's see here, week 3. Pair programming. Oh, and I have to warn you, this is like even cheesier than that Uncle Bob video. Oops. Let me know if you cannot hear the sound.
Hello, and welcome to Fun with Pair Programming, an introduction to pair programming for students. If you're a student who is new to pair programming, you've come to the right place. This video will help provide valuable information to make you the best pair programmer you can possibly be in your classes and beyond. Pair programming refers to the practice whereby two programmers work side by side on one computer, collaborating on the same design, algorithm, code, or test. The pair is made up of a driver, who actively types at the computer or records a design, and a navigator, who watches the work of the driver and identifies problems, asks clarifying questions, and makes suggestions. Switch roles from time to time to share the work evenly and get the most out of your pair programming experience. You'll hear effective pairs constantly chatting as they jointly decide how to tackle the task at hand.
Well, actually, I don't even know where it's saving this stuff. So we create a new patient and it adds a record. Oh,
Alright.
probably in save data file. Mm-hmm. So it's going through, looks like a list of records.
Mm-hmm. So we probably, since we just added the height and weight, I don't know if that's actually getting written.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay.
So
Why do so many thousands of students around the world prefer pair programming? Why don't we ask some to compare old-fashioned solo programming to this new and innovative system?
Wait, what was the word?
You would program by yourself, so you'd usually be just by yourself in a computer, maybe in a cube or at a single desk, and it's a very lonely type thing. It can be.
Well, it could be really frustrating. You'd sit there banging your head against a desk and trying to find, the missing bracket, or couldn't figure out why the logic in your program didn't quite work right. And with two people there, it's a lot easier to work those problems out a lot more quickly, so you're not frustrated all the time.
This is nothing new either. Most science labs take advantage of lab partners and small groups. Computer science is no different. You can learn a lot from working with other people. Students find it helps them get better scores on programming projects. Pair programming helps them learn, so they get better grades on exams as well. Mostly, students report that they enjoy getting to know the people in their classes better. This makes it much easier to interact when problems do arise, because you've got a class full of friends instead of strangers. Last, but certainly not least, students are much more likely to figure out solutions if they've got someone to brainstorm with, and this can lead to faster completion times and a better understanding of the subject matter. Students often find the whole experience much more enjoyable and less frustrating. Pair programming will also help you prepare for your career in computer science. In the professional world, people collaborate and pair program all the time, and as an expert, you'll already be ahead of the game. Have you ever spent most of your class time with your hand in the air, getting nowhere on a project while you wait for help from your professor or lab instructor? With pair programming, those days are history, and you'll find yourself having a lot more fun. Who knows? Maybe you'll even look forward to the alarm going off in the morning so you can get to class. Now that you know the basics, let's look at some simple do's and don'ts of pair programming. First, be sure to talk. Not a minute should go by when you're not communicating somehow. Don't say anything that might insult your partner. Even if you're only joking, he or she might take it personally. Don't forget to listen too. Both the driver and the navigator should be fully engaged in the project. So much so that the driver can pass the keyboard to the navigator at any time, and he or she will be ready for the switch with no questions asked. Periodically switch positions so you can gain experience in both roles. Switching helps prevent errors and stimulates conversation too. Be patient. Be prepared to explain yourself to your partner, and don't get frustrated if they don't understand it first. By explaining your work to your partner, you'll be helping yourself learn as well. Remember the ancient Chinese proverb, "To teach is to learn." And be sure to give the driver a little time to correct his or her own mistakes. After all, No one likes a backseat driver. Respect your partner. The golden rule is key here. Just remember to treat your partner with the same level of respect that you expect from him or her. It doesn't matter if they're from another culture, an introvert, an extrovert, a procrastinator, or the valedictorian. We are all here to accomplish one thing, and everyone has something to offer. Take breaks. You can get more done in 1 hour pair programming than in several hours by yourself. But this can take a toll on your brain. Don't forget to take a break every so often to keep yourself fresh and energetic. When you return, you'll likely see something you overlooked before. Be prepared. Be sure to do any preliminary work ahead of time and don't be late for appointments with your partner. Their time is valuable, as is yours. Hygiene. Think about it. How would you feel if the person you were going to spend a couple of hours with smelled terrible? Take a shower, brush your teeth, bring some mints. You know the drill. Have fun! Working with someone else can be a lot more fun than working by yourself. You can share a laugh, relieve some tension, and have someone to celebrate with when you get that last test case to pass. Believe me, that's a great feeling.
Now that we've gone through all the things you should do as a pair programmer, let's go through some of the things you should avoid when working with your partner.
Don't be a keyboard hog, or think that just because your partner is a novice and you're more experienced, that they won't bring something to the table. Don't constantly tell other people what to do either. You don't want to be the only person in the class that no one wants to work with because you're too bossy. There is another side to that coin, so don't be intimidated. Some people are afraid that they don't know enough, but chances are your partner feels the same way, and you both know way more than you give yourself credit for. Trust me, it will all be fine. The primary goal of pairing is to work together towards the best possible solution, so don't be afraid to speak up if you disagree with your partner from time to time. Your partner may as well be working alone if you're not willing to speak up. If you're unhappy with your pair programming situation, for any reason, don't hesitate to talk to your professor or teaching aide. That's their job, and they will be happy to help you resolve whatever problem you may have. As you can see, there are many benefits to pair programming, but there are also a few speed bumps. Sometimes you'll find it difficult to find time in your schedules to meet, for example. But students all over the world agree that the benefits outweigh any drawbacks that they can find.
If there's two of you working on it, typically you're spending a lot less time working on it, so this is great for homework. Then also I would say that in general, your solution is going to be better.
So if you're working with somebody and their grade or their deadline matters to you, you're more likely to get your work done at an earlier time. Also with pair programming, you can typically have higher grades on assignments. There's higher quality code as well.
This concludes our journey through the exciting world of pair programming, but there's still much to learn. Take these tips with you into your next pair programming lab and join the growing number of pair programmers across the country, the world, and beyond.
Yeah, the guy that does the announcements here, he's my spirit animal. Man, I wish I could be this excited about something I do. I mean, I've got a radio voice, but that guy is, I don't know. Anyway, so, what did you think? What did you see? What are some of the maybe questions that you have before that we can discuss before you embark on pair programming?
So we're supposed to come up with our own partners, right? As well as we're doing it during the lecture time. Are we actually getting breakout rooms part of this actual thing? Okay.
Yeah. So
So that
here's what I'll
means you can
do.
check in on us while we're working, which will help
Yes. Yep.
out.
We'll use Zoom breakout rooms. Yep. I'll be so yes. Mechanically, how this is going to work is after we get an introduction to the kata, then we'll break into breakout rooms. We got 43 people, so I have a pair of three unless someone wants to. I have a pair of three unless someone wants to pair with me. Um, we can. And then we'll go into the breakout rooms. I'll be lurking around. You can summon me, I think, somehow um, in Zoom and make sure everything's going on there. So yes, we'll be working in breakout rooms, and then we'll go for probably half an hour, 40 minutes um, as pairs, and then come back and talk about what we've learned. What did you observe about that video? What are some things that maybe surprised you about pair programming, or some things that you wanted to just talk about or call out before we dive into it?
I noticed. I mean, the driver and what was it? The programmer and the driver, or something like that, or driver and navigator. Right?
Navigator. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to do it. I actually had a little bit of experience doing something similar with a group partner last term. The guy I made an organization with on GitHub, and I think that definitely helps out. But we're going to be switching, right?
Yes.
That's going to be one person.
So between the driver and the navigator, I recommend that after hey, I've heard it said that it's like for every unit test you switch back and forth. I don't know if you want to do it that often, but yeah, I mean, have one person sort of focused on navigating, which is all about, hey, where are we going, what are the test cases we need to write, where do we need to go next, versus the driver who's sitting there with hands on the keyboard, who's actually worrying about the syntax and getting everything to run and stuff. It's good to experience both, and it helps cognitively to sort of be focused on something more strategic as opposed to something more tactical and going back and forth.
And in the breakout rooms, we're going to be sharing, whoever is the driver will be sharing their screen, right?
Yes. There is something called Code with Me for the IntelliJ. I haven't tried it out yet, so I don't know if I'm ready to endorse it yet. But it is a way that you can like share your code with someone else. I don't know how well it works exactly. So then I think just regular screen sharing should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when airplanes were first going digital with a bunch of their control systems, I think they still do it, but I don't know how modern ways they do it. But they would write, they'd have 3 different teams of people write the navigation control code, and then whenever someone input a gesture into the airline, or they try to do some control unit, they'd run all 3 different blocks of code, and then pick anytime they had 2 that agreed, or they average any 2 of them so they get the best result, which is basically what you're doing with pair programming, where you've got 2 independent algorithms running, and the overlap between the errors between those 2 programs is much more minimal.
Oh, that's a great connection. Yeah, thank you. So here, there are lots of chat going by. So I was not noticing the chat was happening during the video. Yeah, cheesy background music, the whole thing. Question about, can we rename the public directory, the public repository, I think, to be different than Portland State Java Summer? Yes. Call it, Portland State Java Katas, whatever you want. We'll talk about what the kata name for the project should be or could be here shortly when we talk about the kata. But any other observations about what was in the video? Any hopes, dreams, fears about about your experience pair programming? Anything else you'd like to talk about as a group before we talk about the kata and then break into it?
One just interesting thought, like thinking about the idea initially, is kind of terrifying. I don't know about everybody else, but like I definitely get anxiety when people are watching me as I type. So kind of interesting experience to get comfortable with someone looking over your shoulder as you go and write code.
Yes, I think it's very true. Everyone experiences that. Even I still experience it. It's like, I'm sitting there typing and someone's watching, and yes, and in order to be, in order to effectively pair program, you need to be comfortable with that anxiety. You need to be vulnerable, and I encourage both people in the pairs to acknowledge that vulnerability and know that this might be very unusual. There's a reason that we that they don't practice it because it's not necessarily natural. A lot of everybody pretty much has come through the the United States educational system is used to working on their own, and there's this competition and everything, and that is still there and it's still true. But tonight and for this activity, please put that away. Because this is really about understanding the experience, about learning about pair programming and how it can work for you. Oh, another question came in. Are we following TDD in pair programming? I recommend it, but that's completely up to you and your partner. It might be that you look at the kata and it's like, hey, I know how to do this, and I do recommend that you write some tests, and because you'll be using the if you use the project created by the Create Kata project script, then you'll have everything already there. So I encourage you to do TDD, but that's not part of the assessment or anything like that.
Are we, is the starting point for this making a repository and then cloning the original getting started repo that you had? So
Yeah.
it's sort of starting for the same point as our projects, but we're not expected to copy in our projects repo directly. Right?
Exactly. It'll be a public repository, so a different repository that everybody can
Right.
see. And then to either make an organization where everybody has privileges to push, or make people collaborators so that that they can push. And then yes, go through the instructions, and let's see here. Let me go find the getting started repository again. Actually, I'll get to that secondary. Let's talk about the. Well, no, maybe we should do that first. Let's do that first then. Do I have? Let's just do that here. Portland State Java. Getting started. Oops, no, drat. That didn't work. Okay, so yeah, let's first just remind everybody, and so then I'll post that here so everybody can get that up in a browser tab. That's the instructions on how to get started. So you can go through this, the thing with the git clone, doing the bear clone, and then doing the creating a repository. This time it'll be a public repository, and do the push there, and then that'll give you some code to get started with. And what we're going to be coding up is this kata. So um, so there's, let's see here. Do I have that? I don't think I have that video on the coding dojo anymore. Do I? No, I don't use that. So what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be pair programming to solve this little code kata. And I chose this one because it seemed really simple. I figured this would be a good way to get started. Basically, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be writing a function called compute that takes a string and returns a string that implements the following rules. And so the string that's passed in is a number, or is expected to be a number. And then if that number is divisible by 3, then write foo instead of the number. So convert the digit 3 to foo. Similarly, if it's divisible by, write foo. If the number is divisible by 5, bar, divisible by 7, quicks. And then for each digit 3, 5, and 7 in the number that's passed in, replace it with foo, bar, and quicks in that order. And so they have a bunch of examples right here. They look like good test cases. And so then let's go through that step 1. If there's time, you can augment it with this step 2 down here. And so as you can see, this is a really simple problem, and that's okay. It's a great place to start. Don't worry, the cause will get more interesting in future weeks. Tonight, it's really all about, first of all, getting your environment set up, making sure you can do all the right GitHub stuff, making sure that you have 2 people that can pass code back and forth, and then do a little coding, pair programming on this together. And so talk about, hey, what does the code need to do? Decide, hey, you're going to do a test driven. You're going to do a test afterwards. Figure out what works right for you, and then see how it goes. So, any questions about this kata and sort of the problem that we'll be exploring tonight?
We'll have 90 minutes to do this, right?
Approximately. Here's what we'll do. We'll go for like a half an hour, 40 minutes, which may be enough. Maybe, I don't know. Whatever. We'll check in after that, right? We'll come back. We'll share our experiences. We'll talk about what's worked, what hasn't. If somebody's done, they can share their code if they'd like. Sort of walk us through the problem, and then sort of depending on how the time's looking, we can go back and do some more, maybe if we feel up to it. And here, the goal is to get experience with pair program. The goal is not to solve the problem and isn't to sort of solve it, the best way or whatever. It's to explore what it's like working with someone else. So, I mean, if you're in a pair and one person completely dominates the conversation, just bangs all the code and says, great, I'm all done, that will be an interesting experience to reflect on. Because the goal here is that you have multiple people offering multiple perspectives on the code.
And will you be going around early on helping us make sure that we have the GitHub copied and everything?
Yep. And then also, I'm pretty sure there's a way in the breakout rooms where you can request my attention, and I'll try to get to you as quickly as I can. It works a little differently when we're all in person, but can't do that now.
For creating the Kata project, it says to put a Kata name and then your student ID. So does that mean that each time we do a Kata, it's like a new, we have to create a new Maven project for it, and then we just name it this thing, Fuma Kicks?
Yep. That's it. You got it. Oops, what did I just do? I ran out of disk space. That's messed up. Okay, I need to fix that apparently. Oh, maybe that's on my Google. Never mind. Sorry, anything else?
The last thing I have is, are we cloning the Getting Started repo, or are we cloning the Portland State Summer 2021 repo?
Getting Started, please, because the Summer 21 has your projects in it. You don't want to clone that.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right, yeah.
That's the name of the one that we,
Yeah.
And do you have the link? Okay, yeah, it's right here. Thanks.
Yep, I put them there in chat, and it's also, find it here on the course homepage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can we just create the Maven project using the script that you provided and just put that project on GitHub and share that back and forth? Or do we have to do the entire Getting Started directory?
Oh, honestly, it's easiest if you just share the entire repository.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. But I suppose you could just make a regular clone of Getting Started, but you probably want everything there.
Wait, so who's student ID? Because sorry, the pair programming instructions request a student ID, and there's two people. Do we? Is there a way to pick one?
Just choose.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be student ID. It should probably be like group ID or pair ID, or get some group name or something going on. When you do the quiz, the assessment, then you'll just put the repository in there. So it doesn't really matter what ID you choose, I guess. So yeah, make something between the two of you.
And what was that question about again? Like something about pair ID?
Yeah, in the does it matter? Let's see here, where is it? When you run the create kata script, the student ID, this probably shouldn't be student ID. It should probably be something like group name or pair name or whatever.
I came up with an organization named Kata Cartographers. Is that good?
Sure.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure if it probably doesn't want spaces though, right? It should be like a dash or something.
Yes, you can't have spaces in the name of a package. That'd be bad. Nice.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with MCECS, right?
Right. doesn't have to. Not in this case. You need to have the the MKEX ID consistent so that like the grading scripts and the recording the grades all work and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. Okay, I am going to create myself some breakout rooms. We're gonna have 21 of them because it's pairs. Oh, someone just bailed on us. I'll do 20.
Oh, I already have a partner. Can I get
Oh,
partnered up with Matthew Cole?
I'll see if I can make that happen. I think I can. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll sign everybody automatically, and then. Well, actually, I can do let participants choose room. We'll give that a try. Normally I do random, but let you all choose, and so then.
Yeah, you said like talk amongst yourself or something. So at that point, I was like already talking on the Discord.
Okay. You kids, you're at Discord. Okay. There you go. Yeah, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens when you get to self-select into into rooms. So we'll say recreate, and we got 20 rooms. I'm gonna open them all. So let's see here. Do you all have the ability to assign yourself to a room?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay. So go for it. If I see people hanging out, then well, or let me know if you cannot or don't know how to assign yourself. I'm gonna pause the video now because it's probably super boring to watch. Let's see here. Okay, well, you've all just spent a good chunk of time, I don't know, 45 minutes or so, off in your breakout rooms pair programming. And so let's do a quick debrief as a class, to hear about to hear about your experiences. There's already getting some commentary coming across there. Please, I'd like to. I'd like your thoughts, your initial reactions to what you did, both in terms of the kata and working with other people, the kinds of decisions you made, things that were maybe surprising, things that were maybe informative, or things you're still questioning about. So please raise your hand in Zoom. I'd like to hear from a number of you about what your experiences have been.
So it was a little interesting how, because I set up the organization as Kata Cartographers Dash, it didn't like the package name. Apparently you're not allowed to use dashes in Java package names. So there's a lot of issues about like, oh no, do we like reclone the thing or what? But I was able to figure out how to revert the commit, and from there it wasn't too hard. Although we have not finished quite yet, we have a good idea of where to go.
I think someone else had a similar experience where their package name was all numbers, and Java doesn't like that either. So interesting things that you learn about Java. Let's see here. Can't people have raised their hands? Matthew, I think you were first.
So ours went pretty well. I think it was a little slow getting started, but once we had the package with both of us, we made some decent progress in a solution. We were just sort of both limited by our own knowledge of Java. Like, is this a string? Is this an int? Is this a char? And like our own syntax problems. And if we both don't know, then somebody was joking in chat that they like one person reads Stack Overflow, while the other like we didn't go that far, but so we were just sort of like, we got to a point where like we might have needed a third person or an instructor to be like, oh, try like a push in this direction, or this is an error I see. But other than that, I think we made progress. We have a minimally viable sort of solution, some errors still.
Nice. It's an interesting observation about how when when there's some gap in knowledge, it's nice to have that other person that can go off read Stack Overflow, or maybe try something else on their own, or reach out to another resource. Nice, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Melch.
Yeah, so I think the cool thing that I ran into is that normally when I'm writing code, I pay, this sounds horrible at first, but it actually worked out really well. Normally when I'm writing code, I pay a lot more attention to what I'm writing. Because when I write the code and I run the unit test and I get it wrong, I go, oh, silly me, I should have got that right. Whereas when I'm writing it with someone watching me, I already know it's going to be caught. So I don't even care. I just get it working as fast as possible. And so I got stuff working a lot faster because I wasn't sitting there worrying about it, not wanting to run the unit test. And, I don't know. It's one of those things where it feels really bad. It's very much a game design principle, but it feels really bad if you run the test and it catches it. And so you want to catch it. And so rather than running the test, which is going to catch it really fast, you sit there and check it over and over to make sure that you can catch it before the test. And it's a very subtle thing. It's a subconscious thing. And so when we're in the test thing, when your partner's catching it faster than you are, like, that's quiz, not quicks. You're like, oh, yes, so it is. And so it was catching stuff much faster. And we wrote a lot of stuff a lot faster.
Nice. That's an exciting observation. Thank you.
Like I said, it made it a lot easier to program in a fearless way, which makes you a lot faster when you program.
Yeah, interesting. Excellent. Super cool. Dimitri, what thoughts do you have that you'd like to share with the class?
Joshua and I use the IntelliJ program with friends thing.
Hey, you're a little soft. Can you get closer to the microphone or speak up?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you just barely. It's good for me under the headphones, but other people might have difficulties hearing you.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying the IntelliJ program with friends thing worked really well. We could both type at the same time, and it was cool.
Right, and so that was the Code with Me plugin with IntelliJ. So yeah, so IntelliJ has this thing. They just released it. I don't know, boy, it's a couple of months ago. Where yeah, you can establish like a little remote coding session. Was it your room that I was trying it out? I was trying it in someone's room, right? That was and it's actually kind of cool. You can it's like a Google Doc where you can see someone else editing it and you can see like which tab they're on. And so and now let's see here. I think one person said that with like the community edition and their personal license or the trial or the free license, they only had like a half an hour of time. Did anybody else like with a academic license find they had more time?
I think it's unlimited with academic license.
We get the academic license.
And yeah, I was gonna say that it felt exactly like Google Docs collaborating with people.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, a good question came in. Whose push would it be if you coded together? It's whoever pushed it, right? So it's completely independent of Git. So yes, I mean that's that's the thing that if you want your name on it and they're in the Git log, then yeah, you have to be the one that commits it. Yeah, that's a good question. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Dimitri. So here, Bennett, you're up on the list.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought the idea was a little terrifying at first to be like coding with someone else, just like very closely. But I thought it was a really pleasant experience. And I think a takeaway was having a great partner, which I did. I had a great partner, was huge, and it just made the experience really positive and a fun challenge together versus like a competition.
Great observation. Yeah. And it's it's nice to have this be a team sport where you've got people that can back you up that maybe know something that you don't, or it's like when you get tired or you're stuck on something, someone else can pick up the baton and keep running. Thanks. Yeah. Let's see here. And Madison, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I enjoyed the peer programming because kind of for a similar reason that another person said, that when I'm by myself, I tend to be like a chronic overthinker and just I don't know, my mind just kind of wanders and is being very critical. But I think with having another person there, it's like you're more comfortable to just kind of go for it instead of like already questioning the idea that's come to your mind before you've even like touched the keyboard. So I really liked that. And I also liked how, different people think and approach a problem a different way. So just getting two different approaches, like that's something you could never do by yourself. Even with Google, like, some people might Google a completely different question than you would even think of. So, which gives a different answer. So I enjoyed it.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, those were really great observations. Let's see here. No one else has their hand up, but if anybody thinks of something, feel free to raise it. First of all, thank you to everybody who volunteered to speak up and share their observations. Those are the kind of things that I was hoping you get to experience. That you'd get to see what it's like to start in a very short time span, how different the experience can be than when you're trying to approach a problem all by yourself. Michael, you raised your hand.
Yeah, so I had great partner who was really productive, and we had a fun time. She was great. But one thing that the video was saying is about how you have to keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. But when you're doing it back and forth, and especially when you're doing it over a video chat, there's you have to be able to read the cadence. Like you have to say a few words, say a sentence, pause, see if the other person is ready to say something back or not. And just learning that communication skill, it's just I think part of when we learned how to work remotely after the pandemic, it's just how to get used to video chat.
Yeah, right. And the whole cadence of the conversation. So it's acknowledge the conversation with yourself, or just listening to yourself because you don't have a conversation with yourself. But yeah, excellent. Yeah, great observations, everybody. Would anybody like to would anybody like to show off the code they wrote? We spent some time, and it sounds like various groups got into various stages of completeness into it, probably depending on how long it took you to get off the ground. I know there were a handful of people that took a while to remember the right Git incantations and things like that. But anybody like to talk about their solution to the kata?
I would, but I haven't finished.
Okay. Well, it doesn't have to be done yet.
I mean, I guess I can share.
Yeah, go for it, Madison. Thanks.
Should I just share my screen?
Yeah, walk us through it. That'll probably be the easiest thing.
Okay. This was me and Matthew. Okay. So we kind of just approached it like taking turns with each part of the assignment. So he started with just like kind of the base cases here. And then we first checked for like the divisibility part, and then we would like switch between each section. So here we like looped through the digits, so we had to do a little conversion. And and then we had some logic going on here to like we kind of ran into this issue at the end where like it only showed the actual digits if there were no like foo bar quicks in it, like 1 star 1. But then if it was like 10101, it didn't show the ones. So that was kind of the last thing that we added in here with this, like checking to see if I don't know if that was right. It was kind of confusing. But yeah, and then the output at the end. And I guess we can run it. So yeah, there's just a little example.
Andrew, as I have your hand raised, you have a question for Madison?
Yeah, I had a question about, is the visibility talking about the entire integer that we put in, or is it talking about each digit?
Oh.
It's talking about the entire one. Yeah.
I was specifically asking Whitlock, as in, what are we expected to do? Because it makes sense actually for it to be about the entire integer, as you've done, Madison.
I think it's both, because if the integer, well, I guess it's not true that if the integer is in the number as like a digit, that doesn't necessarily mean it's divisible by that digit. So yeah, I'm not sure.
So I'm looking at the kata, at the definition, like they have 9 is foo, and that's because 9 is divisible by 3. 3 does not appear in 9. So yeah, I interpreted it as being the entire number divisible by 3, not just the digit.
But if it was like, if it was 27, would 27 pass divisibility for 3?
Yes,
right?
Just like 9.
Okay. Your examples have that.
Even
Yes,
though
they're 14 in their examples, and you can see what they do with 14.
Okay, that's slightly different than what my partner and I had conceived, but it makes more sense actually, because it has more variation. Yeah, all right.
So Madison, did you and your partner implement any automated tests for this?
No, we didn't really get that far.
Oh, fair enough.
That would be the next step, probably. Although I guess we should be doing that in tandem, but I'm still.
It's a choice. It's a learning experience, right? And so then, nice. Thank you. Madison, is there anything else you wanted to share with us?
I don't think so. That was
awesome.
pretty much it.
Thank you. appreciate that. Did anybody take a test-driven approach or write tests along with their kata, and would they like to either share their code or share their experience writing tests?
We can go, or
No, you go ahead.
I see you guys raising your hands, so go ahead.
You go for it. You went for it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you go for it.
Somebody please go for it.
Well, now it's awkward. I can show really briefly me and why we're able to get it to work here. So we were able to get this output to match up pretty well with the examples here, and then we moved it into its own class here where it does just some really simple modulo stuff and adds it, and then we turned it into an integer for these three, and then for the actual, for each digit 357 add foobar kicks, it was easier to work with it as a string. So then we just looped through each character and then appended, and that's how we got the output to match up here. And then we started making some really basic tests. We only got, it looks like we only got 2, but these both passed. So we were able to see that 33 matched up with the example of foo, foo, foo. And then this one, 27, which is divisible by 3, contains foo, and then foo again. So yeah, we were able to get those to work pretty well. Yeah, that's all I have to share. Sorry.
Nice. No, that's great. Got some tests, and yeah, you looked at all the test cases or at least all the examples that were there in the kata. Sweet.
Hi, do you mind if I go to share my test?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great, Lee.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Let me know if you all can see it.
Yeah, looks good.
Cool. So one of the things that we kind of did first, like my partner's Yufei, what we did first was that we tried to work through the class and the compute function first, and then we also worked into main later. And we also wrote some integration tests to test some basic arguments to make sure that we had all our basic cases covered. Then later on, we tried exploring some more unit tests, including like what happens if we put in a letter for our function. Like it should obviously throw an exception that we catch. What about negative numbers? We thought about how we're going to handle the whole negative numbers thing for some time, and we ultimately decided to just show bar for -5 just as we showed bar for normal 5. And we ultimately got about 100% test coverage after this. Before that, it was somewhere close to 95%.
Excellent. That's great. So what made you decide to write the test? And did you write the test first, or did you write the test after the fact?
We kind of wrote some of the tests after the fact. And then my partner kind of came up with the thought of, shouldn't we test for letters in our test cases? And then that's what led me to write that out first. And then it turns out that we also had to modify our other functions to just give us an empty string if we got a letter. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that. Let's see here. We still have some people with their hands up. I can't tell if that's like you want to talk or like you forgot to put them down before. So
I think it's probably a fair amount forgot, like I did for a moment.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, I and Bennett can show what we were working on, unless Bennett doesn't.
Yeah, go for it.
Here, I'll share my screen and you can chime in as you see.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, so we started with tests for the most part. We got to the refactoring stage, realized, oh no, we forgot to test for blah, and added that back in, part of refactoring. But we did start with tests for the most part. Well, basically, we almost exclusively start with tests. So the whole thing's test driven. And one of the big things that we start with just doing contain strings. We're going to jump into some of the order stuff at the end that we just barely started before it wrapped up. But the contain string was really nice because it let us test just a slice of this. So we're testing, for example, 3 here should foo should at least show up in that. There's other things we should test for at some point, but at the start, you just got to make sure that, yes, that slice of this project works, as does, for example, the 6. So 6 foo should show up. And then we tested, of course, for 15 because 15 has both, is divisible both by 5 and by 3. And 21 is divisible both by 7 by 3, and 105 is divisible by all of them. So we don't care about the order yet. All this is testing is just make sure that foo shows up. And if this one fails later on, then you know what parts of your thing, it lets you debug it a lot easier. And of course, you do the same thing for 5 and 7. And then you do a similar thing for the digits. And again, this one's not checking it for order all yet, just making sure, 23 has 3 in it, but is not divisible by 3. So we can isolate that test case and say, yes, foo should show up in this, and so on down. And then, of course, test for double digits just in case that works. And then we just got into doing some of the order testing at the very end. And it's all and to be clear, we started this entire thing as a unit test based thing. So we haven't even actually done integration tests yet. Main does nothing other than say missing command line arguments. This is purely unit testing compute, but getting compute fleshed out, and then you can go back in and we'll do integration tests at the end. You have any thoughts, Bennett?
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I'm definitely appreciating more the test-driven development process. Initially, it seems a little backwards, but it definitely helped us to localize the problem we just started. We wrote the first test to test 3, and then we just wrote just a super simple, just like if, and then if it was divisible by 3 with the mod, then print out the foo. And then just built off of that, and that was pretty obvious to expand out to 5 and 7. And then same for the second group of tests. And yeah, we found it really helped us using the tests to drive our development.
Excellent. Great learning. Awesome. Okay. Let's see here. Is there anything else people would like to contribute to the conversation?
This is a question. Are we going to be able to finish the work we did, or are we graded on what we have? Or
there's no grade.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The grade is not on the code. Just be clear. The code that you've written tonight is tonight's is all about the experience pair programming, and then what you'll be assessed on is that reflection, that quiz that's there on D2L, where you talk about your experience. So maybe share some of the same observations that you had tonight, or maybe other things that occur to you, between now and we take the quiz. There will also be an opportunity for pair programming next week. It'll be a different kata. So for anyone who wasn't able to participate tonight, or if you want another go at it, you can participate again tomorrow night. However, participate again next week. It's not required that you do, but hey, what else are you gonna do on a Wednesday night, right? Go to Java class. Okay, work on your assignments. That's probably what you do. But yeah, you'll have another opportunity to experience it there. If you want to take some more time tonight, we could have some more time. Again, I can put people back in breakout rooms if they'd like. But right now, I wanted to ask, what do you want to do? I have a little bit more content to share. That's me talking. But does everybody? Did we want to break? So let's vote. Let's see here. Put your. What are the reactions exactly? Let's see here. How do you react? Break would be nice. Okay, cool. Let's say 12 minutes. 12-minute break. We'll reconvene at 8 o'clock, and then I'll talk about some stuff about the Maven site, and then Project 3, and then we can finish off pair program if you want. So let's take a 12-minute break first. Very loudly, I might add. Okay. So, okay, let me share my screen again, because I'm looking at stuff that you aren't. So we're back from the break. Just a couple of things left for tonight. I definitely want to talk about Project 3, and I wanted to show you all something. I want to show you how you can create some really cool reports about your project with Maven. And so then, but let's do the project first. So this week's project that is being assigned, is Project 3. And this continues your appointment book application. And what you're doing in Project 3 is that you are pretty printing it. So in Project 2, you added the ability to take an appointment book and write it out to disk in a text file and then read it back in. And that format of that output is meant to be something that's consumed by a computer, right? You know, the program writes it out and the program reads it back in again. But in Project 3, you're going to dump an appointment book in a format that a human can reach, something that is easy for a person to understand. That's the pretty print behavior that you'll be adding. So the goal here is to learn about Java's facilities for sorting data and for working with dates. Several of you have already asked me questions about, hey, I've been using Java Yield Date. Well, this is where you have to use it in your projects. So a couple of new things in your appointment book application. We're going to be implementing those get begin time and get end time methods that are inherited from the appointment class. So we're going to overwrite those to actually return an instance of Java Util date, and you'll see how this is useful in a little bit. Please re-implement your begin time string and get end string to return strings that are formatted using the date format.short. And if you're not familiar with what date format is, then you can go read up on that in the core API lecture. So, a couple changes to your appointment class. An important change to your appointment book class. The appointments in an appointment book should be sorted chronologically by their beginning time. So when the appointments are displayed in the pretty output, they should be sorted chronologically, so oldest to newest, by their beginning time. If there are two appointments that begin at the same time, then they should be sorted chronologically by the ending time. If you have the case where two appointments have both the same begin time and end time, then sort them lexicographically, alphabetically, by their descriptions. I recommend that you change your appointment class to implement the comparable interface, and you can go read about comparable to figure out what it's all about. So that you can, so that appointments are what are called naturally ordered. They know how to order themselves against relative to other instances of appointment. And finally, there's also a new class called Pretty Printer, which also implements appointment dumper, just like your text dumper. But what it does is it doesn't dump an appointment to the computer readable format. What it does is it prints it to what it does is it formats the appointment in a way that looks nice to people. So take advantage of the date format class of other APIs that Java has for formatting dates, so that you have something that looks good to a human. Please make sure that your pretty printer includes the duration of each appointment in minutes. And so this is all about making it pretty. All of this is driven by a main class called Project 3, which has all the functionality of the previous projects, plus the ability to pretty print an appointment book. So all of the arguments are the same, but now there is a new option, which is called -pretty. So when -pretty is present, it should print out the appointment book to a file, which is the argument that follows the command line argument that follows the -pretty option. Or if the file is specified using a dash, meaning it appears as -pretty- on the command line, then the pretty version of the appointment book should be printed to standard out. So this is different from your text file. Here with -pretty, you can either go to a file or it can go to standard out. If the name of the file that's passed is just dash, then it goes to standard out. Otherwise, the file is the name of a file to create. Note that the appointment book should be pretty printed after the new appointment is added. So again, just like in Project 2, for every invocation of the command line, a new appointment should be added to the appointment book. Another important change in the specification is that the format of the date and time or rather the time format is no longer 24-hour time. Instead it has an AM PM. So now an appropriate date would be 1/2/2021 9:16 p.m. So now your date and time takes 3 arguments on the command line instead of 2. The usual caveats about error handling. Please exit gracefully with an error user-friendly error message under reasonable conditions, like command line's wrong, or if the format of the day or time is wrong, or, and this is a new one, if the appointment's end time is before its start time. So now that you're representing things as dates, it's much easier to make this make this check. So this is another another piece of error handling that your program should do.
I have a
See a
quick
couple.
question.
Well, I saw a couple questions that came in from
Okay.
chat, so we'll get back to you. That. Let's see here. Are options mutually exclusive, or can you give several of them at a time, like dash print and dash pretty? Yes, they are. They are mutually exclusive. So, except for readme, which sort of says just print the readme, you can most certainly have a command line that prints out, or rather, an invocation of the program that prints out the most recently added appointment, reads and writes the appointments to a text file, and pretty prints the entire appointment book to a file or to standard out. Andrew, your question?
Sure. Go down a little bit. It said something about how you want to have an error check, or if there are not, if something is missing from the command line, or there are extraneous command line arguments. So basically, if there's not the exact number that we want, we can have an error basically saying like there's not enough, let's try again.
Well, yeah, in particular the 4 arguments. So if you have, fewer or more of the command line arguments, sorry.
Yeah.
So crash.
Also, I have an interesting way I process these from command line, where basically I won't say how, but it ultimately means that the order of the arguments in relation to each other and the order of the options in relation to each other matters, but they can actually be sort of jumbled. So you can have options in the middle of arguments as long as it has a dash. Okay. Want that?
Let's see here. I guess it doesn't say here, but if you look at project 1, oh no, go options. Well, options may appear in any order, but options always precede arguments.
Okay, so you want that particular functionality to be ironed out.
Yep, that's right. And so, which also means, let's say, you had owner and then dash print and then begin and end. Well, the description of that appointment would be dash print, right?
Yeah. I mean, basically, my assumption was that description would not have a dash in it. That's the way that I sort of organized.
Okay. Well, it turns out I'm not going to test that.
Yeah.
So I
okay.
mean, you're going to be
Just
okay.
wanted to check.
But yeah, the intention is that. Yep.
Yeah. All right. There's a quirk about the way I made it. I was like, I wonder if I should have that really.
I think it'll be okay.
My question comes with the args. So should we have an option for someone to pretty print or pretty print a file without also adding a new appointment, or do you have to always add an appointment every time? Okay.
You always add a new appointment every time. Yeah, it's the way it works.
Yeah. If people are busy, they'll use it.
You don't want us to add functionality that allows you to pretty print without adding something.
Yes, the args are always required.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep, yeah, that's the way it is. But I probably won't test it otherwise. So if you happen to implement it that way, I don't think it's going to kind of get you.
And this is probably unnecessary, but just double check. In Project 3, we're still only taking in 1 appointment per command line.
Yep, that will always be the case.
Okay.
There's only going to be ever 1 appointment on the command line. Actually, if you have extra arguments, if you try to put 2 on, it should be an error. Nice. Okay, this is due in 2 weeks, but remember, things are starting to pile up. So in 2 weeks is that July 21st, where you've got a whole bunch of stuff. So start early and often. How are the cones coming for everybody? Hope people have them well underway by now. There are more than you think. It says do a little bit every day or 2, and you'll get through it, no problem. But saving to the end is not the right thing to do. Trust me, I've got lots of students who have hurt themselves doing that. Yeah.
So
Andrew?
with that, it says the cones are due before class on the 25th, not at the end of class, not at the end of the course. Or...
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. If you go back to the assignment, it says do on the.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because it seemed like a thing like it's like this builds over the course of the entire instruction versus due halfway through.
Nope, it's well. I want to make sure that you have plenty of time to focus on your Android project, so get everything else
Okay.
out of the way. Plus, there's a lot of good stuff in there to just learn the Java programming language. But let's just make sure that I was clear on that in the assignment.
Yeah, it's clear like it's down like on the due date for week 5. It was just I wasn't sure if that was a typo or not.
It is not a typo. I
Okay,
know,
cool.
right?
Thank you.
Wishful thinking.
One question I had was, they seem like they're pretty good exercises. One thing that I found was interesting was that a lot of the time they just straight up say what they expect, like expected true or expected this. And I'm like, am I supposed to even see that? Because sometimes it just seems like I could just look at that and then enter that. So I usually try my best to not look at that and just think about what it is actually asking and then put in what I expect and then see.
Yep, that's sort of the way it works for the cones, that they sort of do give you the answer. So yeah, I mean, there's a brain dead way to do it, which is just like cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. Anybody who does that, yes, it'll count. I don't know how to do it, but you'll miss the learning experience, right? Yeah, the learning experience really is looking at the problem, either saying, oh, this is what I think the answer is, or looking at the problem saying, I've got no idea. And then you go to see what the answer is, and you're like, oh, how did they get that answer? Why is that the answer? But hey, I understand the reality. There's a lot of work to do, and if you don't always put that amount of time thinking into every cone, I will be none the wiser. I won't know the difference. So.
And someone had a question about how to turn it in. Did you already answer that one?
The cones, I believe it's in the assignment. Let's see here. Yeah, you just use a submit program. Yep, there it is down at the bottom. Okay. Cool. Any questions about the project 3, or anything else that we got in progress in terms of your assignments?
So project 2 is implementing read in from a file, but not output.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. So you read in.
Yeah, there's the parser and the dumper.
Okay. And basically it reads in something, and then we add something to it, and then it outputs it to the file.
Yep.
And then, so one thing that might be good for us to watch out for is not allowing it to like just make it a big garbage file that's like infinity long or something. And then project 3 is just pretty print. So is it really just outputting it in a way that looks nicer?
Yep.
Okay, and so we should use like perhaps tabs, but also I know that there's more complex ways of having like actual dividers of certain number of characters and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, there are some formatting libraries that come standard with the with Java that are like sprintf in C, where you can say, hey, make this column so many characters wide, and it'll figure it all out.
And do you want us to not use those because you previously said that
anything in the JDK is fair game, and that's in the JDK.
Okay, all right.
Good questions. Nice. Okay. Yep.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
For project 2, like if we already have a text file that has some appointments in it, like if we don't specify the text file flag, like we're going to add the appointment, but we're not going to update the text file, right?
Just like project 1. Yep.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, the functionality in project 1 is kind of it's kind of simple. Maybe just kind of surprisingly simple. I had a lot of people ask, like, wait, how do we persist it? It's like, you don't. It's like, what? Why are we doing this? Don't worry, you'll get there. And sure enough, project 2, you're getting there. Okay. Nice. So let's see here. Oh, sorry, more questions?
One other question I have is, so you said that the survey for the pair programming thing is opening up tonight or something, but it's due when?
2 weeks from tonight. It's at It's a week after the second one.
And
So
it's basically
yes.
just asking us about our experience with it and generally how it went. So you expect it's probably pretty simple and breezy, right?
Well, it's it's you need to think and write about your experiences. So it should be a lot smaller than a project. That's why it's worth a lot fewer points.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, and of course, as things come up during the week, please ping me on Slack or actually ask in the channels. I work during the day, and I can't necessarily get back to everything in real time. And so then I think we found that the people who ask questions in the channels tend to get information from their peers more quickly than I can respond. So I know it can be awkward sometimes for admitting that you don't know something, but you might get your question answered faster if you ask it in the channel where other people can see it, as opposed to just DMing me or emailing me. Okay. Awesome. Well, let's see here. 817. There's something else that I wanted to show you about the projects and about Maven. But I will say this: this isn't required for the course. This isn't going to be in the final exam. It's not going to be something that's part of your um, part of your projects. And so then I don't the rest of the content for tonight will be that I'll probably talk about, I don't know, half an hour or so of that. And then if you want some more time to do some more pair programming, that's cool. You can go ahead and do that. But otherwise, we can consider all the important content has been covered for tonight. And so then I know it's been a long week, and so if you want to take a break or maybe get to your assignment or something like that, I'm not going to think any less of you if you drop off. And this will all be recorded if you want to catch up on it later. So you're all adults, feel free to use your time appropriately. So that being said, let's take a look at something. So those of you who've been working with JavaDoc have noticed that when you build JavaDoc, Maven creates this target site directory, and that's where things like your reports for the code coverage, the Jacoco, and the Java docs live. But actually, the site is part of something much bigger. So with Maven, Maven is all about having a standard and canonical build process. So the whole idea is that you understand the Maven conventions, you follow the Maven rules, and you get all the benefits of Maven. Meaning that hey, you have all these plugins that here again play by these rules, and so if you play by those rules too, you get the you get the benefits. So we've seen that Maven has facilities for compiling your code, for testing your code, for packaging your code up in jar files, for running integration tests. Next week when we look at Project 4, we'll see lots more cool stuff about integration tests and how you can start web servers and all sorts of great stuff. There's something else though that Maven has, which is the ability to build documentation for your project. And this is great for open source projects, right? So the whole idea is that they wanted to have a way of not only building the jar files and then get published to like a central Maven repository, but also to build documentation for the project so that users of the open source software have sort of a very familiar set of reports and information for their projects. And so there's something called the Maven site. So you can build a like website, a site for your project. And I'm going to go back to IntelliJ here, and we're going to look at some of the stuff in the pom.xml. So the pom.xml is the let's see here, project object model is what POM stands for. And it's basically the description of your project. This is what Maven uses to learn about your project. And that's where you give it things like, the name of the artifact that you're building and your version and all that good stuff. And POMs have a parent-child relationship. And so then the parent POM of this POM is actually my POM, which has all sorts of configuration in terms of Maven plugins and like what version of the compiler to use, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of XML. Yeah, it can be hard to read at times, but it all works, and it's pretty cool. I'm continuously pleased at how all of this stuff works. The POM that's generated or that comes with the Getting Started repository has this comment saying, hey, please change your user ID and your GitHub user in this file accordingly. And so then I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to replace your user ID, which is Whitlock in my case. I guess there's only one of them. I didn't need to do that. So I'll quick revert that. But then also, I think the GitHub user ID is in a couple of places too. Yeah, there are 5 of them. And so that's going to be David Whitlock. And so let's see where this is used. Okay, so here in the POM, you configure things like the name of the artifact. You can have a description of the project. You can have a URL for the project. And so I'm going to change this right here. I'm going to say that's David Whitlock. Oops, went a little too fast. I think I want this one to be lowercase though. You can also say, hey, this project has been, I created it this year in 2021. That's its inception year, and here's who I'm a part of. You can also tell it, hey, when it comes to issues, reporting issues with this repository, what URL do you go to? Well, it's a GitHub URL, and so I will fix it there. Let's see here. Where else? Let's see here. Is this thing? Oh yeah, you can also tell it. You can also configure how someone checks this out from version control. And so then here's another place where there is a link off to GitHub. And finally, there's this thing called GitHub Pages, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. So one of the things that GitHub allows you to do is not only serve code from the on the internet, publicly available code via Git, but it also allows you to host content, static HTML pages through this mechanism called GitHub Pages. And so, I've made changes to my Maven file. I'm going to reload those. It probably won't make much of any difference. For whatever reason, I can never do it the first time because some internal web server isn't running, but now it can do it. And so now I've made some changes here, and here's how we're going to see those changes go into effect. So now when we go back to the terminal here, and I go up here, I can run the Maven command, but I'm going to run the site phase. And what this will do is it'll build all the source code, but then it'll build a it'll build what's called the site for the project, which is a series of reports about the project. As we'll see, that it's got information that comes from the POM. It's also got a number of reports that are made with reporting tools. So things like your Java doc are going to be in there. Things like the results of running your code coverage are going to be in that report. Plus, I've configured a number of other reports that do things like talk about, well, what Maven plugins are used. There's this thing called, it's not called Find Bugs anymore. What is it called? It'll tell you, it'll basically do static analysis of all of your source code and tell you where there are potential bugs hiding. It's really neat stuff. And this is another powerful thing about Maven. Because it has this plugin architecture, because it has this standard and conventional way of doing things. If I'm out there and I've written some code analysis tool, I can create a Maven plugin for my tool, and now poof, anybody that uses Maven, any project that is built with Maven, now gets the benefit of that tool. So it's going off, and now it's generating the Java doc for the tests. It's generating reports for all of the test runs. It generates a report for all the dependencies, all the third-party libraries like JUnit, like Hamcrest that we've learned about. It gets all that information. And this is all part of building your project, is making sure that you can create one of these sites for all your code. It does take a while because there is a lot of analysis involved. And what I've done here is I've run it from the top level project, which then goes and creates subsites for each one of the projects. So for appointment book and for cones and for student, they'll all be generating content there. Oh, yeah, it's called Spot Bugs. That's the name of it. It's not called Find Bugs anymore. Okay, Cool. It generated a lot of stuff. And now, actually, I'll just take a look. So let's see here. So in target, site. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a whole bunch of HTML reports. This isn't terribly easy to read though, or terribly easy to work with. But if you run if you run Maven site stage, what this does is it stages all of those reports into like one HTML or whether one directory hierarchy where all the links work and everything like that. And then so now if I open up let's see here, target site. I think if I open up the index.html here, poof, here we have a website generated from our Maven project, and it's got all sorts of things. Here you've got the name of your project, you've got the version, you've got when it was that this was generated, and you can navigate all sorts of information. So like you want to find out what the student project, or actually maybe the appointment book project, you click here. Oops. Maybe things aren't all hooked up here in the staging. But you can learn about, let's see which one of these things work. We've got some reports. Can we look at the Java doc? Okay, so here we have Java doc for all the code in our repository, and you can see all of the classes that are now in my project, in my package. And because we are looking across all the source code, we have both student and appointment in project one all in the same place. But these are Java docs, right? All of this was generated for you. Oops, I'll move back. We've also got actually we can I configured it so that you can see the source code. You can browse the source code too. So you can go, and this looks a little bit like JavaDoc, but it's not. So now you can see the source code, and let's say you wanted to have put this up on your website, and so now you can link to it. So you want to look at line 11, great, it's all up there. So you have all of this stuff generated by a Maven project. And now if I go to GitHub and I go to my Portland State Java Summer 2021, now what I want to be able to do is I want to take this site and deploy it into GitHub so it can be served up in GitHub. So I want to make a new branch called gh-pages. Oh wait, create branch, yep. Oh, actually, I don't want to create it from main. I want to create it from the very first version of the repository, which, do I know how to find that easily? I may. Let's see here. What hasn't changed very much? License. Ooh, initial commit. There it was. Oops. Let's see here. 0 parents is the first one. So here, I want to create a new branch from this. So let's see here. I think what I need to do then is get the hash, and can I do that? Create branch. Oh darn, how do I do that here? Maybe I know I can do it from IntelliJ. I'll just do that a little bit easier than IntelliJ. Can I check out tag or revision? I don't really want to check it out though. I want to do what? I want to look at that license file. I want to then I want to get the revision, so I want to look at git show git log, initial commit, and I want to say new branch from that revision. I want to call it. I want to make it from the first revision so that there are as few files on this branch as possible, because I just want this to contain the content that I'm serving up as a GitHub page. I don't really want the source code in there. I just want all the stuff from the Maven site. I don't want to check out the branch actually. GitHub pages. Okay, and now I want to push that branch. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay, maybe I do need to do this the hard way. Probably do it. Let's see here. What do I have for options here? Push. Yes, I'll push that up to GitHub. And now if I go to the, I need to reload to see it. Yep, now GitHub pages, a lot less stuff in there, which is fine, which is exactly what I intended. But now that I have that branch, oops, yep, now I have that branch, now I can run Maven site deploy, Maven W, site deploy. And what this will do is will publish the site from my local machine up to GitHub. And it might take a while. There's a lot of stuff to transfer. It's not the fastest thing in the world. But what it'll be able to do eventually is I'll be able to then go to a GitHub URL, and it will let me browse the documentation there. So we're just going to give it a minute here while it's doing its thing. Bennett asks, is this something we'll need to do? No, it's not. So this is me showing you neat stuff that you can do. And this might be, hey, if you're working on an open source project, or maybe as part of a capstone project, if you're developing some stuff, you'll need this. But no, this is not a requirement from the course. Interesting but terrifying. Hey, we're living on the edge here. So now if you go to this URL, this dwhitlock.github.io. So this is slightly different from the github.com. This is a github.io URL. I'm going to turn that to an HTTPS. It's now published up here, and I hope now that the links work. Yes, they do. So now you've basically got all this information about your Maven project and all of the submodules, and you can get information about, like, hey, here's how you can. Oh yeah, look, I forgot about all this stuff. Here's where here's where the artifacts, or at least the inherited artifacts, are published. You can look at dependency convergence is so interesting. Here's all of the dependencies that the projects have. Right now, it depends on things like JUnit and Hamcrest. Here are the transitive dependencies, which means these are the libraries that these are the dependencies of the libraries that you're dependent on. So this is basically saying, hey, here is like the universe of all the code that you're going to need to run your project. And because Maven knows all of this, you can create a report about it. Some more interesting reports are things like, oh, do I not have the Jacoco reports? Oopsie. I guess they're missing. We already saw the Java doc. But there are other things that you can get, like just general information about it. Issue management. This is where it links off to issues, and this is great stuff, right? So if you're making an open source project, then these are the kinds of things that you want to provide the people that use your software, so that they'll be more likely to use it because it's easy to learn things about it. So anyway, that's Maven site. That's what it's all about. And GitHub allows you to publish this stuff up to GitHub.io, no problem. As a matter of fact, I've got actually something else that I kind of like is that oh, that's not going to work, is it? Oh, that's totally not going to work here. That's screwy. Okay, so unfortunately, it didn't link off to the parent POM, because the parent POM is actually documented here from my other repository. Ooh, it says about Kata archetype. That ain't right. Oh, interesting. Must have done that wrong. Pardon moi. That is just plain wrong. I will have to fix that. So you can see it's a little error prone. Still figuring it out myself, I guess, in some cases, but it's really cool, especially for more straightforward projects. stuff in that PSU or Portland State Java project is GitHub repository is pretty complex. So, any other questions about what you saw? Terrifying, horrifying, so neat. Started watching Netflix 20 minutes ago. That's fine. Okay. Andrew, if you're asking a question, you're muted.
I've definitely divided my attention a little bit more since you said that it's optional, but I intend to go back, and I definitely appreciate you going into extra detail about Maven and stuff like that.
Hey, get your money's worth. Only the finest Maven information here at Portland State University. I don't know. Okay. Excellent. Okay, and so I just wanted to share that with you all tonight. Let's see here. That's all the content that I had prepared. I'm happy to open up the breakout rooms again if you'd like to go back. I see that a handful of people have left, and again, that's fine. I'll open back up again. I'll stop the recording because I don't think there's anything else here. But if you'd like some more time to pair up, and I'm happy to hang around until, let's say, I don't know, another half an hour, so 9-10. About if you need any help or if you want to share anything out. Otherwise, thanks as always for coming to class. I'll see you next week. Next week's exciting. Not only will we be doing some more pair programming, but we're also going to look at Project 4. And so even if you did pair programming tonight and you're not planning on doing more pairing next week, the setup for Project 4 is different and something that I highly recommend that you attend live so you can ask questions. Of course, it'll be recorded, but it's Project 4 is a new Maven project, is lots of new stuff, and you'll probably want to play along at home to make sure that everything is working the way you expect. But until then, have a wonderful week. Stay cool, stay safe, and Slack me if you've got a question. But otherwise, I will see you then. Okay, I will stop the recording and then